This is Deadbeat Heroes. It's a game from Square Enix, but you may also recognise it from Deadbeat Productions, and these were the people behind The Marvellous Mistake. Now, you can see some similarities in both the game design and the overworlds, but it's also a very, very different game, because while The Marvellous Mistake was more of a puzzle sort of game, this is definitely an action game where you're going to run around mashing buttons, beating up all the heroes, beating up all the enemies. Yeah, you're totally not the bad guys, by the way. You're definitely the heroes. Well, that cough is also not really a spoiler at all. It's not even right. But, you know, maybe there is something to be said to that, because, you know, if this spoiled the ending. Anyway, so you are a hero with a mechanical fisting device that is some sort of turbo engine fist that helps you have powers, being a hero that isn't actually a hero. You're just a regular guy with this superpowered fist gauntlet that enables you to have superpowers because you've been recruited by a very, very old hero who wants to fight against the bad guys because all the heroes have been ran out of town or destroyed by Prime Sinister, Lord of Chaos of the London Underground, nonetheless. And it's an old-fashioned sort of game with old-fashioned superheroes and a lot of English humour and quips, and it's quite a lot of fun. And you might think, well, this is a very simplistic game, you could easily just blast your way through that. But if you ever played a very different game, Rusty Hearts, which is a game that no longer exists, but it's worth mentioning because of the fact that in that game you had to chain together combos to be stylish and get points graded on how stylish and fun you could make your moves. It's essentially the same sort of system in this, where you want to chain together all your moves, hitting the different bad guys, hitting the characters, running along the walls and just being generally a badass, because you're not really a hero if you don't do it with style. And you also have to go and release all the hostages in some of the levels before they release themselves, because you want them to spread news about how they were saved by the hero. And, you know, if they just release themselves and run away, then they're not going to talk about you and you're not really going to be the hero of the day. So, you know, it's all about being stylish and smashing your way through. And some of the levels do have specific grade requirements which are a bit harder, so, you know, you might miss them, but for the most part they're fairly easy with a C grade to get through. Now, there are a few different worlds, so with each level there's a different sort of theme. Like there's the London Underground one later as you're infiltrating the evil lair, and then the actual underground evil lair, and then there's the overworld and different parts of scenic London which you'll be going through with different transport as you unlock them throughout the levels. And as you progress further, you will also unlock different characters. Now, whereas in The Marvellous Mistake they actually had different abilities, in this game they're more just sort of for show, so, and also the voice talents, if you want to hear the different voice talents. But, you know, you can have a blast going through it, and the reason that they're very similar is because it's also a multiplayer game, so you can play with your different characters all on the screen at the same time and blast your way through and fight, and that might be a bit more of a challenge to keep your combo style together whilst you're fighting with and sort of against your other person, because you can actually fight them on the screen at the same time and knock each other and mess each other up. So that's half of the fun with it as well. You're going to have quite a bit of fun kicking each other about, trying to see who can be the most badass and get through and defeat the enemy. And there are bosses on each world. The irony is that whilst the bosses are there, you will get their power before that boss from their minions that have the same sort of power as well. So if you beat up a superpowered minion, they drop an item which allows you to steal their superpower and use it against them, and you have to use the superpower against the boss at the end of the level to defeat them. But it's not truly defeating them unless you punch them before they start talking, of course. Just something I invented in there because I was having fun with it, and it's a fun little silly game with a lot of silly humour, so you can have a bit of a blast playing through it. Now, it took me about 6 hours to get through, and it's £11, so it's a fairly reasonable price, to be honest, for the amount of fun you're going to have with it. And you can integrate it with Twitch chat, so if you do integrate it with Twitch, your chatters and your viewers and your subscribers can become minions. They won't take control of them, but it'll have their name on it. So, you know, if you've ever wanted to beat up one of the irritating chatters are writing bollocks about you. I'm not saying all your chat's like that, you've probably got a really nice chat, but, they will also get to see their name up on the screen, and maybe they'll have a lot of fun and be, haha, I'm the one that beat you down. But yeah, it's good that they added the Twitch interaction with that, because, it's not necessarily something that you need, and the game works perfectly fine without it, but they could become the mini-bosses, they can become just the normal people. And there are a lot of different powers in there as well, so they are very varied with the powers as well. So there's fire and ice, and then there's the incredible bulk, and then there's the reflective shield. The reflective shield is probably the most challenging one, because whilst you're trying to string your combos together and get closer to the enemies, it becomes a bit of a problem when the shield just makes you stop still and really not move, so you're going to be just going clink, clink, clink as you're trying to get closer to them. But it does reflect bullets, and maybe you don't have to run as fast as you have to with other powers to get to them, because it will keep your chain going. And with these different powers, it does mean that the bosses are pretty varied too, so they all have those powers in the end. And then, it does become a bit of a challenge to collect the power and take on the boss whilst the minions are all fighting you, and you can only hurt the boss with their own specific power, so that's something pretty unique. And then there's a final boss, who legitimately is not the same as you. He does not have the same power and the same engine, and then, your boss, the old person who was retired, the old superhero who retired, he's totally not going to take over his base at all and think, this is a fantastic place to run our base of operations from. But you don't. I mean, whilst he does say that, spoilers, you don't actually take it over, so, your overworld doesn't change to that location, but you can actually play as that guy from then, so, it's quite a fun little game, and I had a lot of fun with it, so it's worth checking out and a lot of fun. So yeah, just go check it out for yourself. This is Deadbeat Heroes, and I like these devs. They make a lot of fun games and a lot of creativity, and while it would have been interesting to be able to play as, different characters and have them have different abilities, the abilities that you do get in the game vary up enough, so you have access to all the abilities as all the different characters, so it's not like you are limited in your abilities. The abilities that you do get are based upon the areas that you're in and the enemies that are available there. That said, I do have to point out that there were a few glitches with it, and it's good that they did put the last ability, being the teleport ability, later in the game, so you didn't ever encounter the glitch too much, because if you got the teleportation ability a bit earlier, you'd have probably been teleporting out of the map a lot, and then there are the glitches where the enemy teleports outside of the map, but even if you've chased them outside of the map, they're still designated as being in that area, whereas if you teleport out of it, you're in the minus realm, and things don't necessarily work the same there. So whilst you can hit them if you do pause buffering, because the overworld and the underworld will create they'll melt together into the same sort of world, so the minus realm and the overworld become one, and you can punch them, and if you can do that and then get back into the level, which is even more challenging than you might think, then it might be possible to do it. And then also with the pause buffering, you'll notice that the enemies will be in the sky, in skyboxes, before they get dropped into the level, and that too can cause some problems when you're teleporting around, because whilst you'll teleport to an enemy, it won't necessarily be an enemy that's natively in the world at that time. It might be one that's in the skybox, so you'll teleport miles into the sky into one of those unloaded enemies, and that creates its own issues there. But it's a minor glitch, but it's still something worth noting. And, it doesn't detract from the fun. It just can be frustrating when you're on the last part of the last level, and then the last enemy is teleported out into the minus realm, and you can do nothing to get him back. And then there's no quit feature, so you can't just restart the level. You'll have to do some silly, funky things to actually get out the level and back into the game. So, it would have been nice to have a restart feature. I think it used to, but I think they removed it. But, when you encounter this glitch, it is nice to have the restart feature there. So if they could bring back the restart feature, the quick restart for the level, that'd be ideal. But it's not really game breaking. Anyway, this has been Deadbeat Heroes. Go check it out for yourself. It's available now.